Deion Sanders has lost it after breaking rumors claimed his son Shedeur Sanders is walking away from the NFL to pursue a major career move outside football. Keep watching to find out the brand Shedeur partnered with that sparked Deion's public reaction online. Entering the 2025 NFL Draft, Shedeur was considered a potential first-round pick. After a productive collegiate career at Colorado, most of the football world had penciled him in as a top 5 selection. He had the resume to back it up. In his 2 seasons with the Buffaloes, Sanders threw for 7,364 yards and 64 touchdowns in 24 games. In 2023 and 2024, he recorded passer ratings of 151.7 and 168.2 respectively, while completing 71.7% of his passes. In 2024, Sanders was named to the All-Big 12 first team, won the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year award, led all of college football in completion percentage, was a second-team All-American, and won the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. His jersey, number 2, was retired by Colorado after he left, and yet when April 2025 arrived and the NFL Draft began in Green Bay, something went terribly wrong. Deion Sanders seemed disappointed over the Saints passing on his son, Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. In the 2025 NFL Draft on Thursday night, the Colorado coach shook his head when NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced Texas tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. as the No. 9 pick by the Saints. Deion had previously flagged New Orleans as a potential landing spot. The head shake was visible on national television. Then pick 10 passed, then pick 15, then pick 20. Then the first round ended entirely, and Shedeur Sanders had not heard his name called. The Pro Football Hall of Famer then pointed his finger and appeared to signal for someone to turn the volume down on the draft and turn the music on at their draft party in Texas. Day 2 arrived. Pick after pick came and went. Then, in one of the most surreal moments of that entire weekend, the NFL launched an investigation into how Shedeur Sanders' private phone number was leaked and used for a prank call during Day 2 of the draft. As Sanders continued to go undrafted through Friday's Day 2, a video surfaced on social media of the quarterback receiving a call from someone impersonating New Orleans Saints general manager Mickey Loomis. Shedeur, surrounded by family and friends at his draft party, took the call live. The person on the other line claimed to be New Orleans Saints general manager Mickey Loomis and informed Sanders that the Saints would be taking him with their next pick. After Sanders said that he'd been waiting for this, the person on the other end instead reversed course and told Sanders that he would have to wait a little longer. The confusion on Shedeur's face was broadcast to the world. The Sanders call was a result of Jax Olbrich, the 21-year-old son of the Falcons' defensive coordinator, obtaining Sanders' number from an unlocked iPad at his father's home. The Atlanta Falcons were fined $250,000, while Olbrich was personally fined $100,000. It also emerged that Sanders' phone number had been included in a mass email sent to more than 2,000 recipients, without being marked confidential, exposing a wider issue around player privacy during the draft process. Day 2 ended. Still no Shedeur. The Cleveland Browns wound up being the team to select Shedeur Sanders in the 2025 NFL Draft, but it came much later than expected. Sanders had already lost steam as a potential first-round pick, but his slide was unprecedented as he didn't hear his name called on Day 2 either. Sanders finally heard his name called when the Browns selected him in the 5th round at No. 144 overall, ending his fall down the board. Even though Shedeur completed 71.8% of his passes for 7,364 yards, 64 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions over his 2 seasons at Colorado, he ended up being the 6th quarterback taken in the 2025 NFL Draft, behind Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Tyler Schaff, Jalen Milroe, and Dylan Gabriel. He went from projected 1st or 2nd overall pick to the 144th selection. The drop was seismic, and Deion Sanders watched every single second of it. The outcome hurt Deion significantly because, as he explained, he couldn't do anything about it. "That was the first time in my life that I couldn't fix it," Deion said. "I've always been able to fix it, with all my kids. But as that stuff was going on, I couldn't fix it. And he wanted me to fix it, and I didn't have the power to fix it. And that hurt, because I felt like I wasn't there for my son." The moment the draft ended, the football world erupted into one enormous debate. Why did this happen? How does a quarterback with Shedeur's numbers fall to the 5th round? There were 2 camps, and they could not have been further apart from each other. On one side, a wave of anonymous reports began to surface from inside NFL front offices, and the picture they painted of Shedeur was damaging. Nearly everyone in NFL media seemed to agree that Shedeur treated the pre-draft process as if he were being recruited, with the 23-year-old quarterback even going so far as to reportedly tank interviews with NFL teams that he didn't like. The reports were brutal and specific. One anonymous NFL coach told NFL media that his meeting with Shedeur Sanders before the draft was that the worst formal interview I've ever been in my life, and harped on negative body language. Another questioned how his skill set would truly fit a pro-level system. Other sources described Shedeur as wearing headphones during team meetings, a detail that spread rapidly across sports media and became one of the defining images of his pre-draft reputation. As one source told PFT after the 2025 draft ended, there was a perception that Shedeur conducted himself as if he was being recruited, not interviewed. Given the importance of the quarterback position generally and the fact that Shedeur wasn't a no-brainer, once in 20 years prospect, Deion's approach from 1989 wasn't going to fly in 2025. There was also the Deion problem, a cloud hanging over the entire process that almost no one in the NFL was willing to say publicly, but that insiders whispered constantly. One problem was the perception, fueled by comments Deion had made, that Deion would be eyeing the head coaching job of the team that drafted Shedeur. What coach in his right mind would have signed off on drafting Shedeur early in the process? If it also meant potentially signing his own eventual pink slip, here's what Deion said in January 2025. "The only way I would consider coaching in the NFL is to coach my sons." Those words landed like a grenade across every NFL front office in the country. One anonymous high-level NFL executive said, "I think his dad's involvement hurt him. Some of the things his dad said, I think that weighed on people's minds." On the other side of the debate, there were voices just as loud who pushed back hard on all of it. During an episode of The Arena, Gridiron NFL analyst Skip Bayless expressed his disappointment when a talent like Shedeur slid to the 5th round. What the NFL did to Shedeur Sanders to punish him and his father, to teach them a lesson, to put them in their place. Bayless stated, "That's what happened." The analysts on the show strongly dismissed those rumors about Shedeur giving bad interviews or wearing headphones during meetings. They felt these narratives were exaggerated excuses used by all the front offices to avoid drafting a quarterback with attitude issues. Solomon Wilcots, a former NFL player and longtime host for Sirius NFL Radio, said, "There were people who don't think he's that good of a player. And then there were a lot of people who think he's a great player, and he was done wrong by some conspiracy." Wilcots himself played at Colorado and had followed Shedeur's career closely, giving him a perspective that cut straight down the middle of the argument. And then there was the agent decision, a decision that Deion now admits was a miscalculation. Sanders made a key decision not to hire an agent before the draft. They thought it was a foregone conclusion. Shedeur would go in the 1st or 2nd round, and thought paying an agent would be a waste of money. There's no way to know for sure if an agent could have prevented Shedeur from falling to the 5th round. But agents are paid that 3% to 5% to help their clients. An agent could have helped settle teams down when attacks came on his character. After his slide, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Will Howard explained how Shedeur's drop affected other quarterbacks' chances of getting drafted. "It was really that whole Shedeur situation kinda. His sliding really hurt a lot of the other quarterbacks in our class." Howard stated, "Just because he was ranked a little higher, so nobody wanted to take guys like me, or Riley Leonard, or Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers. The collapse had a blast radius. It was not just Shedeur who paid the price." Deion Sanders has never been a man who stays quiet when he believes his family has been wronged. And when the dust settled from the 2025 draft, he did not stay quiet. Colorado coach Deion Sanders said he was hurt by reports that said his son Shedeur Sanders was unprepared during pre-draft meetings with NFL teams, but he also isn't buying the validity of them either. On the Say What Needs to Be Said podcast, hosted by former NFL cornerback Asante Samuel, Deion laid out his full response to the pre-draft smear campaign. Deion Sanders particularly took offense to reports that Shedeur Sanders wore headphones during meetings with NFL teams. When you sit up there and say something like he went into a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Deion Sanders said, Shedeur Sanders, who has had 6 different offensive coordinators, who has still functioned and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in. And you're going to tell me he was unprepared? You're going to tell me he had on headphones? Anybody who knows my son understands he's a professional. On Garrett Bush's Barbershop podcast, Deion peeled back another layer. going into territory he had never publicly addressed before. In an exclusive interview on Bush's Barbershop podcast, Sanders revealed a formerly undisclosed feeling he had during his son's NFL draft slide. "I've never told anybody this publicly," Sanders said. He spoke about watching his son sit at that draft party for 3 full days, waiting while the entire football world debated his character, his work ethic, and his future. And Deion could do nothing to stop any of it. It was some ignorant things came out about him pre-draft and all that. And that was a lie. Deion, Sanders said, like he would never go into a meeting with headphones on. He would never go into a meeting unprepared. Like, that's just not who he is. There's no way he could accomplish the things he accomplished without being prepared. But the real heat in Deion's response came when he turned his attention to the NFL as a system. Deion Sanders suggested that the 2025 NFL draft tumble of his son soured him on the idea of ever coaching in the NFL. During an appearance on ESPN's First Take, Coach Prime was asked if anything could convince him to make the move to the NFL, and he responded by saying, "Not whatsoever. What transpired with my son last year? Ain't no way in the world." This was Deion drawing a hard line. The NFL had lost him, not as a coach, but as a cooperating participant in a system he now viewed with deep suspicion. While Shedeur appeared to be in a good place, the draft clearly left a bad taste in Deion's mouth, and it sounds like he is content staying in the college ranks at Colorado. This push for the meeting follows Deion's strong defense of Shedeur's rookie season, during which he claimed Shedeur went through hell due to a series of ignorant lies from the media. Deion specifically addressed pre-draft narratives that depicted Shedeur as unprepared or unprofessional, including claims that he would wear headphones during team meetings. Dismissing these reports as complete fabrications, Deion pointed to the scars on his back as a metaphor for the resilience Shedeur displayed. While throwing for 400 yards and 7 touchdowns after being selected 144th overall. And not everyone in the media was willing to give Deion a clean pass on his outrage. On Fox Sports Radio, former Jets and Cardinals DB Kerry Rhodes said, "Two things can be true. Shedeur did go through hell, but partly because of his own shenanigans and his own ways. The fact that they don't take any responsibility for their own accountability is part of the problem with the Sanderses. There is truth to this. But when you speak on only the things that have been done to you as a person, I think that starts to wear on people." Rhodes was saying what a lot of people inside the NFL were thinking, that Deion's war on the league was loud, righteous sounding, and yet conveniently silent on anything that pointed back at the Sanders camp itself. Even after everything that happened at the draft, the story did not slow down once Shedeur put on a Cleveland Browns jersey. If the draft was a fall, his rookie season was a climb, painful, unsteady, and very much in public view. He was originally named the 3rd-string quarterback behind Joe Flacco and Dillon Gabriel. Not 2nd string, 3rd. A man once projected to go 1st or 2nd overall in the entire draft was sitting at the bottom of a depth chart, watching from the sideline. After beginning 4th on the Browns' quarterback depth chart, Sanders quickly moved up, thanks to the trades of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, and Gabriel suffering an injury. After an injury suffered by Dillon Gabriel against the Baltimore Ravens in mid-November, Shedeur Sanders took over starting duties. He started in 7 games and managed to get 3 victories. The first one came immediately, in his first start against the also struggling Las Vegas Raiders. The 24-10 victory ended a 3-game losing streak, but was followed by 4 straight defeats. Shedeur did manage to get 2 victories in the last weeks of the season, closing the year with wins over the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals. In total, he recorded 1,400 passing yards with 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. His QBR was an incredibly low 18.9. He also recorded 169 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. The numbers were not inspiring. But Deion refused to frame them that way. Deion Sanders says the last year and change have changed his son, who understands last year's draft cycle as an expected first-rounder wasn't his time just yet. When he takes off his shirt, I see the scars on his back that he's been through hell, but he's made it through hell. Deion Sanders said he kept going and he matured, not like he was a child, but he matured spiritually. Shedeur himself emerged from the season with a quieter, more grounded perspective. During the Cleveland Browns OTAs, Sanders was asked to reflect on his draft experience a year later. He was reflective. "I don't look at anything as a negative," he said. "When you start looking at things as a negative, That's when you grow spite and hatred, and nothing positive comes out of that. So, I view everything. It's just like I'm just happy, I'm thankful, I'm blessed. I was in a position to where I can handle everything that comes my way. So now I feel bulletproof. Sanders pushed back when a reporter asked whether his free fall in the draft had been a humbling experience. Respectfully, I just don't want to talk about last year because it doesn't help us move forward. Sanders said, "We not in last year no more. We in this year." The posture was the same one he had maintained since draft night. Chin up, eyes forward, not giving the world the anger it was waiting for. Shedeur Sanders reacted to the apparent prank at the draft while speaking with another guest at the event. "Why get mad?" he said. "They want you to have a certain type of reaction to it." Meanwhile, the season brought one notable bright spot that cut through the noise. Browns' fifth-round signal caller Shedeur Sanders was added to the Pro Bowl games roster as a replacement for Drake May, who couldn't participate in the games ahead of the Patriots' appearance in Super Bowl LX. A fifth-round pick earning a Pro Bowl nod in his rookie year, even as a replacement, was a data point Deion and the Sanders camp were not about to let pass without notice. Shedeur Sanders is switching to No. 2 for year 2. The Cleveland Browns announced the quarterback's new number on Monday, which coincided with Sanders posting /2 on social media. He was already looking ahead, changing his jersey number, resetting, and preparing to fight for the starting job again. But the Cleveland front office had also made a change that would shake up everything. Monken was hired as Cleveland's new head coach after the team fired Kevin Stefanski following the 2025 season. This year, Shedeur will be battling Gabriel and Deshaun Watson, who will be returning from a torn Achilles that has put him out since October 2024. Sanders has a real shot at earning the starting role from new coach Todd Monken. But nothing was guaranteed, and that is exactly the environment Deion Sanders was watching his son walk into. Here is where the story gets complicated, and where the title of this video demands a direct answer. The phrase "Shedeur quits the NFL" spread through social media with speed. And to understand where that idea came from, you have to look at what Deion was actually saying in those barbershop interviews and ESPN First Take appearances, and what was being read into his words. Deion Sanders suggested that the 2025 NFL draft tumble of his son soured him on the idea of ever coaching in the NFL. During an appearance on ESPN's First Take, Coach Prime was asked if anything could convince him to make the move to the NFL, and he responded by saying, "Not whatsoever. What transpired with my son last year. Ain't no way in the world." Deion made it clear the NFL had burned him, that what happened to his son in that draft process had permanently closed the door on him personally ever working inside the league. And when those words started circulating, some corners of the internet ran with them, conflating Deion's disillusionment with Shedeur's own future. The reality, though, is that Shedeur Sanders has not quit the NFL, not even close. Looking towards the future, Sanders is currently in the middle of a quarterback competition in Cleveland for the second offseason in a row. The debate on whether or not the Cleveland Browns should make quarterback Shedeur Sanders their starter for the 2026 NFL season is alive and ongoing. He changed his jersey number, showed up to OTAs, and has been putting in work in front of a new head coach, who has the authority to hand him the starting job. Deion Sanders said he would like to have a conversation with Monken and offer a scouting report of his potential starting quarterback. "I want to meet him because I think it's vital that as a coach, not the dad, I can tell him a few things about Shedeur. How to get him going," Sanders said. "That wasn't asked of me a year ago. I don't understand it. Even a guy like Travis Hunter being drafted to Jacksonville, and I've had him for the last 3 years. Don't you think you would want to talk to me to ask me what gets him going and what backs him off? You would want to know that." Fellow head coach and Sanders' father, Deion Sanders, is now trying to meet with the new Browns leader. When he does, Sanders says he wants to speak to Monken coach to coach, rather than as Shedeur's dad. "I was supposed to go actually next week, but I've got to shoot a commercial to Cleveland to meet Monken," Sanders said. But insiders are divided on whether this level of involvement is helping or hurting. Some league insiders believe that this level of involvement could be counterproductive. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated recently suggested that it would be better for Deion to step back and allow Shedeur to navigate the professional landscape on his own terms. When Deion Sanders says things like this, it does not help Shedeur Sanders at all. It makes him look pampered and coddled in the eyes of teammates and fans. Shedeur Sanders admits he could have approached the 2025 draft differently, But there are still greater forces at play that help explain his drop down the boards. Solomon Wilcots said, "What I loved about Shedeur is that he admitted that he could have handled the draft process differently. That admission? Quiet, measured, and entirely unlike the combative tone of his father. Tells you that Shedeur and Deion are processing this in very different ways. Shedeur is looking forward. Deion is still in the fire." So the title of this video, "Deion Goes Crazy After Shedeur Quits the NFL," is half a story. Deion has absolutely gone to war. He has said the NFL burned his son, that he saw the scars on Shedeur's back, that he will never coach in the NFL because of what happened, and that the pre-draft character attacks on his son were ignorant lies. The fury is real, it is documented, and it is ongoing. Quarterback Shedeur Sanders falling to the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft became one of the most discussed sports stories of that year, and it is now unclear if he has any real future with the Cleveland Browns team that took a flyer on him last spring. But Shedeur has not quit. He has not walked away. Browns QB Shedeur Sanders reflected on the past year and says he's now bulletproof. "I'm thankful that everything happened how it happened. He is competing for a starting job, wearing a new jersey number, and preparing for year 2 of an NFL career that the entire league tried to tell him he did not deserve." Deion added that Shedeur learned, "You can't force this. If it ain't your time, it ain't your time." That is not the language of a man who quit. That is the language of a man who survived something and came out the other side, not just standing, but ready to go again.